It's an MLR match weekend that included a backwards day, some unexpected results in week 9 of the 2025 Major League Rugby season that brought on some pretty dang good fantasy MLR results as well. On this episode 150 of the Fantasy Ruckers Show, we break down all of those top performances, talk about the week 9 that had jam-packed action, and of course, talk about the latest news from around the league, waiver wire, plus much more, and of course, look ahead to the week 10 to come. The Fantasy Ruckers Show starts right now.
Where rugby and the world of fantasy sports collide. Welcome to the Fantasy Ruckers Show, bringing fantasy rugby to the masses, talking all things rugby from the MLR to leagues around the world. We're on top of it. Headphones on, pads off. This is the Fantasy Ruckers Show. Now, here are your hosts, Ryan Yee, Matt Yee, and Devin Vanderpool.
What's up, everybody? This is episode 150 of the Fantasy Ruckers Show. Thank you so much for Fantasy Ruckers League members, our community members, and everyone else tagging along on this journey of making fantasy rugby a reality in the MLR for the 150th time with you each and every single week. Matt Yee, Devin Vanderpool, I am Ryan Yee, and in what was a very, very exciting week 9 that was.
Well, confusing.
Confusing. That is one another word to describe it. We got an episode 150, boys. So a little bit more juice on this show. Can you believe it? 150 episodes in, and we're still getting surprised on the regular on the show when it comes to some of these results over the weekend. This one definitely included.
Yeah, I mean, 150 episodes, boys. That's pretty wild. That's pretty wild.
150 episodes,
That's
150
kinda too
episodes
many.
of...
That's too many shows
Trust
with
me.
you guys, man. I'm getting sick of you.
Wow.
No, I feel like, that was more of like the 100 threshold. You're in it for the long run here, Vandy. There's no escaping
Hey,
this.
I forgot to tell you I'm doing it live on the show. See you, boys. Hey, it's a slice.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
no resignation, 2-week notice.
No, this show would not be the same without you, Vandy. And of course, we did have to try to go on without you, Vandy, last episode because you had a little bit of a family trip. We talked about that. It sounds like it was a whole bunch of fun, which means you got even more catching up. It's you went away. We said on the show a bye week, like your Utah Warriors, boys. You needed a little bit of time to kind of readjust and take a deep breath. And the boys looked pretty good. And maybe you'll be just as good here on this episode. That is jam-packed, guys. That we got a lot to talk to. Obviously, an exciting episode 150, huge milestone for the boys. Appreciate all the support out there. But we got a lot of rugby to talk about. Obviously, the confusing, exciting, insert descriptive word here in terms of what we will tell you what week 9 was. We're going to get into all of that. Some pretty shocking results. I mentioned it at the top of the intro. It felt like a backwards day on Saturday in terms of some of the things that you thought were going to happen didn't happen. The things that you never expected would happen did happen. A whole bunch of stuff. It was good that we wiped the slate clean, huh, Matt, last week and kind of came in with a fresh new perspective.
Yeah, it seemed like all the teams were doing that.
Yeah, it did seem just like that. So we'll go over all of that. Of course, we got you some waiver wire segment to talk about here, some options that will be available for you here heading into week 10. We'll, of course, talk about that week 10 and then talk a little bit about some money picks. It was a tough week for Vandy. And there's a little story about my picks here that we'll get into. You'll have to stay tuned for that at the end of the episode. Before we do, though, at the Fantasy Ruckers, make sure you're giving us a follow. Like, subscribe, handles up above, down below in the description. The support means a lot. Hit that thumbs up button if you're listening on or watching on the YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that bell. Helps us a whole lot. Helps us a whole lot when we have been trying to do this thing, especially 150 episodes in. You guys make us keep on going, this fantasy MLR thing, which is great. Again, Discord community as well that you can join. Link down below in the description. Fun bunch over there. And make sure you check out thefantasyruckers.com, the official platform for the Fantasy Ruckers Fantasy MLR leagues. All right, let's hop right into it.
News dump.
All right, it is time for our TFR news dump, where we break down all the latest happenings from around the league. Not much this past week, at least not much that I want to talk about when it comes to maybe some signings, some trades, things like that. Pretty quiet, pretty quiet. But there is an update, or there are some rumblings that we need to discuss about that we don't like bringing up on this show, and that is injuries that happen here in the course of the 2025 MLR season. That, of course, impacts you in your fantasy MLR year. A big one, Maddie. We were on the show last week, swooning over this man because of how good he has been this fantasy MLR season.
Every season.
Davey Kutzer, who who is currently our number one fantasy MLR player at 99.3 fantasy points, ahead of Jonah Mo by 3. Davey Kutzer did not obviously appear in this past week's match. Left, presumably, it looked like he was limping 10 minutes into last week's match in week 8, where it looked like an injury was hindering him. I don't know. I don't want to speculate on what it may be or how long it might be, but it doesn't sound good. So basically what this update is for any Davey Kutzer owners out there. Have some backup plans in place. Start acting now. If you didn't act last week, you want to act this week. Maybe look at some of those waiver wire options a little bit more closely, because I do believe or have a feeling that what we're going to hear about Davey Kutzer here in the near future is not going to be one that Davey Kutzer owners will want to hear.
Where does this come from? Is this news, or are you just saying you have a feeling? That ain't news.
It's an update. It's the more of the dump part than the news part.
So you're saying you think.
Okay.
Or do you have source
Sources
that are telling you that are saying that this is what's going to happen?
I don't know.
I don't like this. Well, why can't you expose whether you like what's happening? What's going on with this?
I'm giving you some words of wisdom.
That's it. You're telling us you couldn't say this in the waiver wire part segment, telling people.
No, this is important.
AJ.
This is fantasy MLR player number 1. When you're that
fair.
good in fantasy MLR, we need to bump that to the top of the show.
Number 1.
Okay, but you need to give the people some context here. How much weight should they be taking? Should they be taking your word?
All of it.
Why is this? We've seen people out for 1 week. Why is it this time that you've decided to say, "Hey, it's going to be worse. It might be worse"?
I didn't say it was going to be worse. I'm just saying that I have a feeling.
All right,
it might be long.
All right. Well, I don't know how you're supposed to take this. I got some actual news for people.
Don't drop him, but
drop him so I can pick him up. Drop him.
Look for other options is what I'm saying. That is the crux of it.
And this is just from your own brain.
Maddie,
this is from your gut. This is from your gut. There's no other influences. It's just your gut saying this was what might happen.
You would be a lot more in tune with this if you were a Davey Kutzer owner, but you're not. And I know the Davey Kutzer owners would be grasping at straws. All I'm saying is that be prepared to look at other options, because our king, who is fantasy MLR player number 1. We could have
said the news dump intro and just said, "Oh, we got nothing credible."
No, that's not how we do this show. That is not how we do this show.
Hot take.
Well, do you know what? I got something for the people that is factual.
Okay.
And is is MLR relevant. And Vandy, I think you're gonna like this actually. Remember Tanila Filimone? Remember that guy who signed on for 3 years for the NOLA Gold? Yeah, crushed it. I had him for Oval E.
Most tries last year, I believe.
Yeah, most tries. Crushed it. Anyways, the guy continues where he left off on debut for the Highlanders. Scores a double against Fijian Drua. Guy scoring a double on debut. I have a feeling he's not coming back to the MLR. So people who are hopeful for that, we'll see. But
do you think how noticeable do you think that is on the international stage when it comes to, hey, that guy used MLR as kind of a development piece to get to where he's at now? Like, do you think people chat about it?
I feel like people are probably going to say that, where he came from in the NPC Bunnies before they say where he came from in the MLR. But who knows? I didn't watch the broadcast.
It's got to mean something, though.
It's got to mean something.
It's true.
Hey,
it's true.
It is true.
He was here. He did do this thing, and it was pretty electric last year. All right, Matt, you have any other credible things you want to add to make up for my lack of credibility, I guess?
No, I just want to warn the viewers that Ryan's got nothing, no base to it. There's no weight behind it. He's pulling it straight out of where the sun don't shine.
Straight out of where the sun don't shine.
And he went deep for that one. He went elbow deep for that one because I was right up in his gut.
Are you hearing something different?
I'm not hearing anything different, but it felt like the way you said it felt like you had some sort of source that you weren't able to share.
Well, all I'm saying is that just be on the lookout. That's what I'll leave it there. All right. Well, Taniela Philemoni, double debut. Davey Kutzer, hold your breath, fantasy managers. We'll see what happens. All right. Let's talk a little bit about some of the things that went down in our TFR leagues.
Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye.
All right, hear ye, hear ye. Here is Supreme Commissioner Yee with the Fantasy Ruckers Leagues update.
I've wiped the floor with all of you. Every person. You didn't even come close. You're like, this guy was finishing 5th, 6th, and 7th the past few weeks. And then boom, I beat you guys by 30 points.
Yeah.
Nice try. Come again.
So if you didn't notice, if you're listening to this, Maddie did pretty good this week. Yes, he did. 30 points. What kind of math are you doing, Matt?
Doesn't matter. Base felt like 30. Nobody was even close.
Maddie got 72.4 fantasy.
Yeah, we've seen that one before.
That one was pretty
good.
Scored
more than some fantasy managers with a full lineup.
You did put in Reese McDonald in, which was a very good choice. It is very hard to get everyone to score double digits, and you almost did just that. But hey, good job, Maddie. Coming in second, though. Not what?
He scored more than some fantasy managers with 5 guys. That's actually wild.
That is true.
I scored more than myself.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah, no kidding. You beat out Stephen Lowen, our community moderator, by not 30 points, Maddie, like you mentioned, but it was by a bit.
And triple it. Yeah, pretty much.
It was 30. About 15 fantasy points that you did. So Stephen Lowen, congrats. Second. And our third, which is a heartbreaking loss, is our first community member. So at least there's some credibility in our fantasy skills. We got you, one of the co-creators here at the top, Stephen Lowen, who's been doing this thing since the beginning, community moderator. Hey, we're showing that we have some knowledge with this thing. But I Am Sleeves, who's another person that's been in this fantasy game for quite some time. He finishes off third, so I had to give him a shout out as well. 57.6 for him. Hey, I came in right in there at fourth,
way to go,
which is pretty solid. 54.5. I am taking that strategy now because I've been doing so poorly. I got to pinpoint something I got to do. And I listened to our very own Alistair Kirschpool. I am playing the anti-Anthem game when it comes to my lineup. So all Chicago Hounds for both my lineup and the TFR lineup. Clearly this week I chose the right one. It is shocking to me, though, that on the season, the TFR team is third place behind you, Alistair Kirschpool.
Oh, you're far away.
Yeah, no.
Anybody who thought they could catch up.
It's true. 12th. All right. So that is our TFR weekly challenge. Again, if you want to get first dabble in all things fantasy MLR, the weekly challenge is a great way to do that. 5-person lineup, $15 budget. You pick and fill out those key positions and see if you can beat us here on the Fantasy Rucker Show, get a shout out here on the show, and beat out some of the other longtime TFR community members as well. A couple other housekeeping notes here. Eligibility. Again, keep on checking that. We've had some changes last week. Obviously, Sam Golick getting his second row eligibility back, which is really nice. But there's going to be some other things here coming this week that will also shift the eligibility for certain players there. And then last thing, we talked about this in some length here during the offseason. And it's felt like, because we haven't had to deal with it here so far this year, but midweek games are upon us soon. Week 11 is when we have our first, I believe, Tuesday matchup.
Oh boy.
RFCLA is playing. Just a reminder to all fantasy MLR managers that midweek games will not count here for our fantasy MLR league. Again, this is just the easiest, most uniform way that we've done it. So, hey, you got to enjoy some rugby without the stresses and rigors that is trying to keep an extra eye on those guys that you have on your fantasy MLR squad. So next week's matches, again, that doesn't fall into this week. This week, we're all good to go. Got Friday and Saturday matches this week, which we'll get into. Next week is when the midweek games start. Those will not count for week 11. We'll make sure to remind you again on next week's episode, but want to get a jump on early just in case anyone needed to make some lineup adjustments here up.
Well, I think we're going to have to talk about it because week 10, Ryan, do you know who the week 11 Tuesday game is?
The week 11 Tuesday game, I believe, is Los Angeles. Give
No,
me
they're
some
coming off
time.
bye. Okay, so that doesn't matter.
Stalling. It is. Uh,
LA
no,
versus
Oh,
no. Utah Warriors, San Diego Legion is the Tuesday game.
no, that's the
what day is
30th,
that?
Ryan. You're on the 30th.
Oh, wait.
Come on now.
I'm on the 30th. What do I need to be on? I need to
You
back it
need
up a
to
little
be
bit. I need
on.
to back it up. Yeah. Wait,
Wait, there's no
Friday?
weekday
That's
game.
this.
It's next
Oh
week.
boy. Oh boy. How
Oh
can we
boy.
trust these
Oh
fantasy
boy. It is
league
true.
supreme commissioner
It is
updates?
true.
How can we trust his gut feeling
Hold
Davy
on.
Kutzer injury update
Hold on.
when he
Hold on.
can't
Hold on.
even
We're
read a
falling
calendar?
apart. We're
He
falling
can't even
apart
read a
here.
calendar. I heard last time he went into February, I think it was February 30th. This is a concern.
Yeah, they play Tuesday, April 22nd. Free Jacks, LA.
Yeah. I was right. Google had it wrong.
Yeah, always blaming old ABC.
Yeah, well, that's
No,
the
I
22nd.
had it right.
That's next week.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Yeah, but that's part of week 11. But what I was going to say
That's
is that
what I'm
LARC,
saying.
New England Free Jack, LA on bye, not a big deal.
Yes.
New England Free Jacks versus the Anthem. Is it kind of a bye? I don't know. But will be interesting to see the lineup. I think New England Free Jacks are going to put out most
New England
definitely.
players will not be available for you next week. Treat it like a bye.
That's fair.
Yes, but they'll be playing in week 10. That's what I'm saying. They're playing on a Saturday,
Yes.
and then they're playing on a Tuesday. They're going to
Yes.
have to make lineup decisions for the Saturday.
Oh, I see
That's
what
going to
you're
have
saying.
fantasy impact of who's starting.
Yes.
They're not going to play the same lineup on Saturday as they do on Tuesday.
Yes.
So it's going to be interesting
And-
on who is going to be where.
Wait. Well, the Free Jacks do play on Friday.
Oh, well, same difference. It's still 5 days, whatever.
They do play the Anthem on Friday.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. So like, if I was obviously I'd rest some of my starters against the Anthem and then have the guys come out to play against RFCLA. So,
Right.
but it'll be interesting again, and which has its own fantasy implications, which maybe we'll have to talk about in the waiver wire.
Yeah. And then Anthem, Rugby Carolina, and Seattle Seawolves are on the Wednesday. So you'll have Anthem that week. You will not have New England. Only New England. New England's the only one because Seawolves play double next week too. So all right. I'm glad we did that math here on the Fantasy Rucker Show and got that all sorted out.
Yeah,
That-
me
that's
too.
that's what people listen for. This is good content, right? Good content. All right. Now with that all organized, let's get into a recap of week 9.
Quick Tap Recap.
I feel like I just cracked the Da Vinci Code. Like my
You
brain.
did.
I don't think it was supposed to be that hard.
It
but
is
feels
confusing.
It feels like it was that
Tuesday-
hard.
Sometimes life's hard.
When you think football terms, Tuesday feels like it should be part of week 10, but it's
You're
not
right. It's not.
part of week 11.
It's not. All right. Well, let's subside.
Let's
That's,
-2 get back to week 9.
Yeah, -2. Get back to week 9. Exactly. On by the Seattle Seawolves. So a whole other slew of matches, a full slate that all started on Saturday afternoon. But like I said, that Saturday, weird Saturday. Started off weird, ended off weird. Even with some of the stuff that was happening on the field and stuff like that. So a whole lot to get to here in this week to break down and, of course, talk about these top performers, give out some Team of the Week honorees. Let's start off with the New England match that was on Saturday at 2 p.m. Like I mentioned, to kick off week 9, they took on the San Diego Legion at home. We thought San Diego was going to be competitive, but it was as far from that.
Yeah.
Mother Nature said no.
Who said no?
Mother Nature.
Mother Nature did say no. 39-12. I was watching the broadcast, and the one thing I could think of for the most part is let's put some windshield wipers on the lens here. I can't see anything right now. And then you watch it back, it's the same thing. But clearly, the San Diego Legion side was thinking the same thing because they could not find any form it seems like in that match. I don't know what the Vegas books knew, but they had New England going into it as 7.5 point favorites, which is crazy. And they ended up absolutely taking care of business. Thoughts on this? Was it just a weather thing, Maddie, or was there something more behind it?
Yeah,
Well,
I mean, look, they
weather
looked
only matters on one side.
well, like yeah, that is
Fair
true.
enough.
That is
That is
true.
true.
But
Both teams do.
I think to me, like San Diego's game, they're just not as adaptable to kind of wet weather play. Like they're not as physical. And we saw it just get exposed here. Like they just looked utterly uncomfortable in the rain. They looked utterly uncomfortable in the conditions. They struggled with physicality. They struggled with really everything. And New England just dominated the entire game. And New England knew exactly what they were going to do. They came in saying, hey, we're going to be dominant. We're going to be physical. We're going to win the contact areas. And that's exactly what they did. Um, but yeah, I don't know if it's just weather. I would say, I mean, San Diego's what on a skid of a 3-game losing streak now, or something like that. And yeah, they have not looked up to snuff since I think that like either the Anthem game back a few weeks ago. So it's concerning a little bit, for sure. I think San Diego just needs to find form. They probably just have to wait till a bye week and find form again. But I don't think it's just the weather. I think they just simply have not been playing well the past few weeks.
Yeah, San Diego losing to New England, obviously this past week. The Chicago Hounds by a try the week before that, and then losing to the Sabercats in round
Yeah.
7. Their last win coming against the Miami Sharks in round 6. Yeah, it's interesting. Now, I guess to the flip side of that, though, let's talk about the New England side of things. How confident are you now that New England has bounced back? We have been pretty low on this team ever since they started falling off, but this team has scored 83 points in their past 2 matches, albeit it does include a Miami Sharks performance in there. But I mean, we just saw the Miami Sharks also play a match here that we'll talk about here shortly that actually played pretty well. And now they beat a formidable side in the San Diego Legion. Only allowing 12 points and scoring 39. So 82 points for, only 18 against in the past 2 weeks. Is this the New England of old that we're starting to see? They've strung now, what, 3 wins in a row since beating Utah by 7?
I think they got lucky with the conference that they were in. They were still able to go
Mm.
like 500. They were 3-3 or whatever. Last 2 weeks they've looked really good, but if they were in the West, let's say like Seattle's getting pummeled right now, they didn't have the chance to kind of get their legs under them. But no, I mean, team's looking really good now.
Yeah. And I think they found a recipe. Like they found a recipe through physical. I think we saw early in the year they're really forcing a lot of kind of they're really forcing kind of like playing through the backs and playing through expansive play. And I think they just realized like, hey, we got to change what we do. They're going to be a physical team. They're going to be, you know, yeah, they're just going to be a physical team and they're going to beat you that way. So it's interesting to watch. When we talk about players, Ryan, before we get into fantasy, a guy who we've talked about a lot the past few weeks on the San Diego side, Rian Stowers. Boy, what an awful game for him. Just a brutal outing for him. I mean, fantasy wise, it shows. He ends up getting, I think, single digit points from a guy who you'd expect to be gets 1.1 points, 4 turnovers from a guy you'd expect to have at least 7, at least 9. Yeah, really rough outing for him.
Yeah. I mean, you'd expect that too. I guess it's compounded by the fact of the weather from the fullback position, but yeah, it doesn't help as well with that either.
Turnovers he had was not weather excusable.
Yeah. Obviously, with San Diego only putting out 12 points, not any team of the week on Reese here on the San Diego side of things, but we'll start off. Friend of the show, Andrew Quattrin.
What a beast.
Front row team of the week on Reef, 15.9 fantasy points for him. Pretty solid week, capitalizing on 2 tries, his best fantasy point performance on this season so far. Now is 4 tries on the year. Add that with 8 tackles as well in the round 9 matchup. Q, looking solid here. I think it's not that he's been bad, but I think a lot of people drafted him for performances like this, and even. Like, it's not even like it was solely reliant on the set piece either. Like, he had a try there as a little pick and go moment. So
look for it to go up just as New England's kind of changing their game style.
yeah,
It'll be interesting to see.
A couple other ones. Harrison Boyle, who is still fly half eligible, obviously starting at the fullback position, took advantage. So what weather? Leave it to no excuse. 17 and a half points for Harrison
Yeah.
Boyle for our fly half team of the week.
Scores. Yeah,
What?
scores 2 tries at the fullback position, but then with Falatoy Penny's injury at 10, he slotted in there and played the rest of the game there. So you got kind of best of both worlds. If you had him in your starting lineup and just had to take a flyer on him and put him as kicker eligible, I should have. He would have scored well for you.
Yeah. I can confidently say that no one had him in his lineup. His fantasy owned account is 0%
I
right
should
now.
have. I should have. I was picking.
But either way,
Dummy.
we'll talk about more about him in the waiver wire. The last guy to mention is Jack Reeves, who comes off the bench and plays a 45-minute shift there, scores 2 tries, 107 meters gain. Kind of an explosive performance that kind of just took advantage of certain situations. And he finds himself on the top of the list here. Center eligible. I know he did. I believe he played on the wing, correct?
Yeah.
But he is center eligible in fantasy MLR and ended up putting up a scorcher there, 25.6. Would have been our fantasy performance of the week, but we have a guy to talk about in the next match that absolutely turned it up on this one. But of course, all New England Free Jacks here on our team of the week. Andrew Quattro in front row, Harrison Boyle fly half, center Jack Reeves. Just overarching game. I guess to wrap this up though, if I had to ask you both right now, who do you have more confidence in here to go further in the playoffs? San Diego or New England? Who do you say?
Vandy?
Oh, see, it's tough because I mean, it's recency bias. Legions look bad in their last three. Free Jacks look great. Bring that question five. I mean, I think the Legion turn it around. I don't think they're going to continue to slump like this, but I mean, hard to not say Free Jacks right now, honestly.
Yeah. And Vandy, you brought it up earlier. Like you talk about who's going further in the playoffs. Like New England Free Jacks and the Chicago Hounds essentially have a free ride to the conference finals. I mean, I forget how the playoffs works. It's too confusing now at this point. But I'm pretty sure there's still a conference finals.
Yes, there
so,
will be.
Yeah, the East sucks.
Yeah, it's tough.
Who I guess then I'll say to even out the differences in conferences, who would you be more confident to put money on to win the Shield?
Just between those two?
Just between those two.
San Diego.
Yeah, I'm a sucker and I go recency bias.
It's interesting. You got a team that's on the up and up, team on kind of the low on the low here.
Watch them lose to the Anthem.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, we'll see. All right. Let's shift on over to the second matchup here. Talk about kind of surprise performances. This was one that caught me off guard. The NOLA Gold decides
Not
to
when you
put
see
up.
those jerseys.
You don't like them?
No, when I see those NOLA jerseys, I knew they were going to win.
Yeah. They did look pretty nice. NOLA Gold putting up a 50 burner on Old Glory DC, winning this one at home 51-29. They came in as -1.5 favorites. Again, the books knew something here. NOLA has been playing better as of late, but this was taking it to another level. And they take one here against Old Glory DC. I'll go to our in-house NOLA supporter.
Nope.
When it comes to each and every year, always making the same mistake.
On paper.
What were your thoughts here in this one, Maddie?
Black jerseys look awesome. They look sweet. That's why they won. Can't go wrong with black and gold. They should wear those more often for sure. I don't know. I think, for me, it was just like, I don't know. NOLA looked a lot better with their decision making. They looked a lot better with their offensive structure. I thought specifically they made really good decisions off the boot, and were making really tactical kicking decisions, which I love to see. I think for me, like when you watch Old Glory DC, you see them make 2 restart errors. I think when you see that as a guy who's watching, you instantly understand that these guys just aren't in it. You just can't have that. But when we get to kind of players and stuff, I mean, good for NOLA. I thought that they offensively looked a lot better. I think somebody and what they're driving off of is JP Duplessis making a comeback, it feels like, because of the way that he's playing. This is 2 games in a row that he's looked incredibly strong. 10.4 fantasy points. Yes, 20 meters gained. Yes, only 13 tackles and two steals. But you're getting 80 minutes. That was a hard game of rugby at JP Duplessis, and he was absolutely everywhere. The only other guy I'd want to call out is Colin Gross on the OGDC. I mean, I called it last week. I said you guys need to pick him up. Nobody listened to me.
That's true.
And he comes out and does it again, 15.5 fantasy points with a double.
Yeah, well, we'll talk more about him coming up in this waiver wire segment again because we did talk about him last
And he
week
got left off the
one.
US long roster too.
Yeah,
What the
yeah.
heck?
Talk about snubs. Talk about snubs. But yeah, I mean, interesting though. Like again, not it was back and forth for a bit, and then Nola just kind of stepped on it and just kind of ran away with everything, large in part due to our first team of the week honoree that will dish out from this match, and our only one that will ditch out from this match is Xavier McNo.
Another one.
33.5 fantasy points on the season. He's just our third player to have scored above that 30-point threshold so far this year, joining Axel Muller from round 1, Devon Rousseau from round 7, and now here Xavier McNo in round 9. His next highest it was in round 6 at 16.7, kind of been up and down as you'd expect a back three player would, but scores a hat trick of tries and now has 6 tries on the season, which 133 meters gained.
He kept trying to ask me, Ryan. He kept trying to say, "Hey, this guy is Xavier Mignon." I kept going Xavier Mignon, and
it is true. You have been on this show, been very confident in him, at least to just have him on your bench, just to hold him there. That's what the problem is, right? So let me, I guess, ask Vandy this, like as a guy who has been involved with fantasy for quite some time and in many sports senses. But this is a situation that happens often, right? Comes off of a 2.9 point performance in round 7. People are down in the heaps with him. And it's not like he's been burning away, right? In a 4-week span before this performance, right? He has 4.3, which you're obviously not happy with. 16.7, which you're like, okay, he's coming back, and then gives you a 2.9, only playing 22 minutes, and then sits out the next week. I don't think confidence was that high. And I think a lot of people were in this situation where they had Xavier McNo on the bench. As someone who's been in that situation, Vandy, before, when it comes to having a guy that you know has that name value, but you put him on the bench because you're like, I just can't trust it. And you see a 33-point mark on sitting on your bench. How do you approach that? And what's the thought that people should have? Because the amount of comments and messages that were kind of going back and forth in our Discord and in other places was like, oh my God, how did I do this? And it feels so bad, especially when you lose. Feels good when you're on the other end of it and you're like, oh, I squeaked away a win because the guy benched him. But like, I guess that's just fantasy, huh, Vandy?
Well, you know what? The thing is, it's these boomer bust guys, you know, and you see it in football. You see it, you know, quite often with like wide receivers, let's say, you know, similar position to the wing. And the thing is, whenever you're structuring your team for that week, you know, you can only have so many boom or bust guys because then, you know, the opposite is the week before he puts up 2, plays 22 minutes, and it's see you later. So,
Yeah.
I mean, sucks when it happens. You kick yourself. And I mean, hell, sometimes there's that one guy that every time you play him, he's going to get you 2, and every time you bench him, he's going to get you 20. And that's just fantasy.
That it happened. It's freaky how often that it does feel like. Obviously, you're kind of in the mix of it, so there is that bias, but it does feel like that sometimes, Vandy, that it's just like, hey, my decision to bench this guy is the catalyst in which causes this guy to get.
What you do is you play him back to back, he burns you twice, then you don't feel bad about it anymore.
Right. Yeah. Shame. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. But with Xavier McNo, it might be a couple more times than that you'll have to figure it out. Other guys in this one from the NOLA side of things, Julian Roberts, 18.5 fantasy points for him. He's starting to look good at that fullback position, which he's now started in 3 weeks in a row. Double-digit performances in all of his matches, except for one comes off his best, 18.5 with that 2 tries that he scored this past weekend. Isaac Tatamaki is a guy that I've been high on here, and he's literally played every single minute of this season so far for the NOLA Gold and finally puts up something that I think a lot of fantasy managers are going to be excited to see, 15.3 fantasy points. Jonah Moe scores a try. He's been clutch all season. One of the best back row players. If you had him, 14.9 for him this year, or at least in round 10. Now, from the Old Glory DC side of things, Maddie mentioned it, Colin Gross. He's looking pretty solid. We'll talk about him more in the waiver wire segment again, but his best performance this weekend, 15.5 fantasy points off of his 2 tries scored. He now has 3 tries in the past 2 matches. And then Facundo Gaddis, who's another guy that I'm going to talk about more of, scores his highest by far, 14.8 with the 2 tries he scored off of that set piece. Yeah, I think that's everyone to mention. Anyone else, Maddie, that you want to highlight here before moving on? I will say it is scary. I'll mention this one guy, Ed Fido. It is good to see him get his finally his first double-digit performance this season. I will say too, I was thinking this as I was watching the match where, Maddie, you know how leading into the season you're talking about this back line could be just electric. Seeing Ed Fido and Xavier Mignot running together and Fido feeding him the ball for that try assist, just seeing both of them, because often
bodies.
you don't.
What do you do?
Large bodies. That's what
large
they are.
bodies.
Actually, Ryan, before we move on, I do have to call out Ruben DeHaas. What a game when he came on. He played fantastic, set up some great tries, had some great balls. Yeah, all of them, all balls.
All right.
Look good.
Ruben DeHaas's balls look good. All right. Moving on to this next one at 7:30 Eastern time. The Miami Sharks pull off what was probably the biggest surprise of the weekend. Taking down the Miami Sharks 31-22. They came in as 7.5-point underdogs. And they said, screw the haters, screw the doubters. We're taking this one. And not even like a fluky win, right? Like they played well. And Houston tried to claw. The Sabercats try to claw their ways back into this one, but Miami shut the door real quick and is able to come out with the dub at home against one of the better teams in the MLR for a team that a lot of us were quite down on last week, especially with the season they've been having so far. But they stacked their most impressive win, unquestionably, of the season here after this weekend.
Yeah, that's a devastating blow for Houston. I think Miami won this game through their centers. They were just really good at making gain line ball, which you don't see against the Houston Sabercats a lot. Like they were making gain line constantly, and their offense was flowing off of that like every time. The other part I really liked about Miami in this game, I thought they scrambled really well on defense. I thought, especially in the first half, like Houston put a lot of pressure on Miami. And Miami scrambled well in defense and defended their line well. So that was really impressive to see. I was pretty disappointed with just the lack of, I guess, converting within the 22 for Houston. Just it's a team. It's kind of something that you expect from them to kind of finish. But Miami, I mean, kudos to them. They deserve this win, and they really earned this one. And it's great to see them kind of getting a dub here.
The implication is huge too, right? Like you mentioned it, Maddie, about the standings. Like now, Houston still stays atop of the standings, but Utah's got to be licking their chops, right, Vandy? You must be happy about that because they're sitting right there with the game in hand, and they could leapfrog and get at the top of the West here with that loss by Miami. And then for Miami's side of things, like you stay right in that East Coast race, right? I get it that like Anthem is a team that you can kind of put aside on the wayside here. But again, 4 teams are making it from the Eastern Conference. You're hanging right in there with the NOLA Gold at that 4-5 swing. This was a massive win for Miami.
Yeah. And I mean, like these last 3 games that we talked about just emphasizes just, even though the records say one thing, there is so much parity between the skill levels of these teams for the most part. And it's like any given Saturday, any given Sunday, any given Tuesday, any given Friday, any team can win.
That's true. And they say that, I get it. They say that in in football, any given Sunday or whatever like that, but it really does truly feel like that this season in MLR, which is how some of these results end up happening, and you're just like, you're sitting there after the match, you're just like, what just happened? I guess then, what is your confidence level? Is this like, okay, they squeaked out like a nice win here, or do you like think that Miami's on the upturn here and they can actually do something with this season?
I mean, let's not forget that we just watched them get their butts absolutely spanked a week ago. So yeah they got to win. Like Vandy said, recency bias. you gotta string some together to be
Your
able to
back
get
row's
get
playing like
people on
that
board.
though. You got a good chance.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Rowan
yeah,
that's
Foley,
true.
Bonasso, those guys were killing
yeah,
it.
Yeah.
yeah. And a guy I'll talk about as we get into some of the fantasy players. I mean, Thomas Kubisha. This guy is, I think, honestly, the anchor of this squad.
Mm.
Like you watch the way that he plays and watch the way that he runs the ball from that center position. It's just he adds so much value to this team, and the fact that he's back in the lineup the past couple weeks, and this week especially, you're seeing some really good play from him that's driving this team forward. 14.8 fantasy points, all 80 minutes played, 79 meters gained, 13 tackles, one steal. Didn't even need to try to put up almost 15 fantasy points. What a guy, man.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's kick it off there with some of these performances here. No team of the week honorees in this one.
Whatever.
But either way, some notable Miami performers. You talking about Kubisha, Maddie. I'm going to talk about the other Tomas, Inciarte. 13.3 fantasy points from the scrum half position. Retains his scrum half eligibility, which we'll talk about here in a little bit in our waiver
And
wire segment.
he
But
played like 50 minutes at 9, and then I think he went 30 minutes at 13 or something
there you
like
go.
that.
Which is not a common. Matt, did you ever imagine a world where you'd be sub or starting at 9 and subbing out to
No,
13?
but that's the beauty of the NCR Tasty Oxburgers of the world. Ryan,
Yes.
before you move on, I think we got to, now that you started the trend, we got to talk about another Thomas on the team, Thomas Caceres, 4.4 fantasy points, 70 minutes gained, 12 meters gained, 9 tackles. Oh, and then let's keep her going. Let's go to Thomas Milanos. All right, another Miami player, 30 minutes, 30 minutes played, 4 tackles, 1 steal. And do you know what? Just to continue to round it all out, because everything's better in fives. Thomas Kubeli comes on for 34 minutes, gets 2 meters gained, and 2 tackles.
I didn't even realize
Thomas
the
show.
number of Tomases that the Miami Sharks has. They
Hey,
honestly
look,
should just be
look,
called the Miami Tomases.
yeah, I mean, they could put a lineup of all
If
Tomases.
we
Actually,
change,
do you know what? Some of them have the accent and some of them don't. So I don't know if that means a whole, like, if that's a huge difference, but
That's just how they
I
know
think
which
we can
one
let
it
it
is.
slide.
It's how
Yeah,
yeah.
they
exactly.
clear it.
Yeah.
Is that are we saying that if we change Vandy's name to Tomas Vanderpool, he could get a spot? They don't have a front row player. I think Vandy would
Buddy, I'll
slot
get
right
my
in.
Tomas kicked out there.
Would he be a Tomas with an accent or no accent?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Look
Or
at
does he have
Vandy.
to? No, he has to earn it.
Just look. No, no, no. You look at Vandy and you see the accent right on top of that A.
But if Vandy gets rid of his mustache, the accent goes way
Yeah,
with
it
it.
goes away. You're
Yeah,
right.
does
It's
it?
like
I was gonna say he earns the
jalapeno
accent.
turns into jalapeno.
Yeah. there, there you go. All right. Well, yes, two out of the five Tomases having very good weeks is made apparent there by Maddie. Thank you very much. The other Miami player, Shane O'Leary from the fullback position, 12.7, was doing the kicking there for a good portion of that game.
Yep.
And then
Interesting to see.
Ronan Foley, 10.1 for him. On the Houston side of things, Drew Wild. I mean, if anything
Oh,
comes of note
oh,
of what
oh,
I said
the
in the
gut
news
feeling.
dump about
Oh,
Davy Coates not being available here for
he's
the
back
foreseeable
next
for the
week. I
near
don't know.
imagine. Um, Drew Wild is looking great. He's had 2 down performances, but this is the Drew Wild performance that we saw in round 4 when he racked up 2 tries and 140 meters gained. And this one, 117 meters gained, a try and a try assist. The best performer from this match and the best performer from the Houston Sabercats at 19.7. Sam Tuifua is looking pretty solid too. He's kind of sneaky under the radar, being pretty consistent there. 14.3 this past week with 95 meters gained and a try assist with 11 tackles. Doesn't even need the try to get into the 14-point mark. And then a guy that you've been kind of mentioning, Matt, quite frequently, Rufus McLean, has been pretty consistent here at the back 3 position. 13 fantasy points in this one. Has his 5th out of 6 matches where he's played the full 80 and now has 3 tries on those 6 matches that he's played in. Pretty solid for
Yeah.
Rufus McLean.
And before we move on to the next one, just got a shout out to my boy Josiah Mora. Scores his first try for Miami. Way to go, bud.
Yeah, he was fueled. He was fueled by the vengeance that he saw in that butt kicking against New England. And he said, I'm coming back in the next match against Houston, and I'm making a point. And he did that with a try. So there you go. Congrats, Josiah Mora. All right. Let's go on to the second last match to round out what was a very weird Saturday. Vandy.
Go, Vandy.
This one was an interesting one. Talk about a tale of two halves. Maybe talk about a tale of before the 45-minute break versus after the 45-minute break. Very weird. Let's get that out of the way first. Obviously, the Utah Warriors winning this one 45-28. They were tied at 21 at half. Declan Leaney was carried off the pitch in what the team is calling a foot injury. He was taken in the ambulance to the nearest hospital, but it is league protocol for an ambulance to be present at the pitch for any play to resume. So after Declan was taken off and after the second half was just about to start, no ambulance present. So they waited about 45 minutes, which is surprising in the Los Angeles area. You would think that it'd be quicker than that, causing a delay, waiting for the ambulance to
I didn't
come.
even know
So
that happened.
breaking down the footage, breaking down all that, that was the reason for the delay. I'm not going to sit here and try to interject on whether that impacted the match that was tied at 21 and ends up going pretty heavily in Utah's favor. But either way, both teams had to experience it, like Vandy alluded to before. Like rain, like anything, all these circumstances do happen. That is something that happened in this pitch or in this match, and something that the league is probably going to have to take a closer look at, because you can't be having 45-minute delays. Because
you know what? To be fair, it's very specific to LA, because you know how long it takes to get to the hospital just down the road because of all the traffic, like an hour and a half.
That's exactly what it is.
And again, overcasting all of this is that we hope Declan Leaney is good, healthy. He was obviously going off. I don't know what it was. Again, the team's calling it a foot injury, but it looked pretty serious. He couldn't even go off on his own weight, and had obviously had to be taken to the hospital. So again, best wishes and a quick recovery for Declan Leaney with whatever happened there. Anyways, to the game portion of this side, I mean, two teams that play a very fun style. They were saying it over and over on the broadcast about this is the type of rugby that Americans need to watch, because this is the type of rugby that's going to have people on the edge of their seats. And that is what you did say last episode, Maddie, about the LA side of things. But more specifically, when you have two teams like Utah and RFCLA that love to play the same way, it just leads to fun rugby to watch. It may not be the cleanest. It may not be the most pure when it comes to what, you know, rugby purists from a strategy standpoint might want to see, but from an excitement fan viewing standpoint, and from us on this show and from a fantasy standpoint, we love this stuff. We love this stuff. Vandy, I'll leave it to you, man. 45-28 victory on a team that hadn't lost in what, three matches, I think.
Yeah.
Pretty incredible.
Yeah, you know what? I'm loving what they're calling it now, the Road Warriors. That was the fourth win on the road this season. I mean, absolutely incredible to see what these guys do with space. I mean, Joe Mono popped a couple in early. Great kind of play by Luila on the one. Easy one on the second one, too. We let them tie it up as we do. And then after the break, after that pause, whatever you want to call it, we just came out firing. Absolutely firing. We made space. You know what? I love to see that forward pack work that maul.
Ridiculous.
They are
best in the league. In my opinion, best in the league.
You know what? Honestly, because even if we don't have Liam Coltman in there, Frank Lahore gets it. Even
Bill Bradford,
Lahore, Thornbury, like Dylan Nell, any of those guys get their hands on that.
Yeah. It was dumb. Sorry, Vanny, go ahead.
No, you know what? Absolutely. And you know what? I love seeing, even though, selfishly, I'd love to see Joel Hodgson kick some of these in. I love seeing Hodgson out there, Luila, and honestly, Matt, I know you don't like him, but Zion Going is playing great.
He has played well. I agree. I do have to admit now, he has been playing well.
Dude, what those guys can do, man, it's tricky. Everyone played pretty good. I got to shout out my boy Joe Mono, though, man. I love.
Hey, $41.
41 bucks. So Maddie has been finally paid off. The guy that dropped $41 on Joe Mono because he was.
And I lost this week. Finally paid off.
Hey, he looked good.
But I agree. Like Vanny, man, like I agree. Like the forwards were the star of this game. Like their set piece, absolutely awesome. And you think about the second half. Honestly, throughout the first half too, LA just. They lost, like they decided that, and Utah with the pressure that they're putting under, forced LA, and LA took a lot of penalties within the half. And Utah was very happy to just keep kicking into the corner because they knew that, hey, chances are we're going to score when we get down there.
Yep.
And they just kept going back to the well there. Every time they went back to that, they knew it was a winning success. And RCLA just couldn't keep up with that. And yes, RCLA played dynamic rugby. They played gain line rugby, which helped them tremendously with their tries, but just not enough when you're taking that many penalties within your own half.
It's going to be the kryptonite of this RFCLA team when it comes to discipline and not beating yourselves. I know it's very cliche, but they make mistakes, ball handling errors, penalties that really just shoot themselves in the foot. They can get away with it. And I think that's been a large portion of this 3-game winning streak that they've been on in terms of being able to beat teams because you have such a dynamic offense. So you can come back from those mistakes and you can cash in very quickly if you're just able to rebound and just adjust and get back into that mindset. But when you're taking on a team that can do that right back at you, like the Utah Warriors,
I mean, I wouldn't even, I think it's the fact that you're doing it against a team that set piece is
true,
deadly.
true,
Like
no,
deadly. Like there's no set piece in this league right now that is converting at a rate that they are when they're inside the 5-meter line. Like you can't, like this has to be what teams do against them. And they have to say, hey, we're not taking penalties in the half.
Yeah.
We're not getting into breakdowns within our own half because that's how worried you have to be against a set piece.
All right. From the fantasy side of things, Joe Mano, we talked about him a lot, obviously. 15.7 fantasy points for him. His second best scoring this year. I think fantasy managers who have held on to Joe Mano, which is all of them because he is 100% owned, had been awaiting for this performance.
Yes.
Since that 24.3 fantasy point performance with the hat trick of tries, 5 tries in the first 2 matches that he played in, people were on a high. And then he kind of put up disappointing numbers, maybe not so much for any player, but for Joe Mano.
For 41 bucks, yeah, he did.
9.5, 8.7, 7.9, 4.6. And now he comes back here with 15.7 with his first 2 tries since that scorching start of a year. We'll see if Joe Mano can continue that momentum going here. D'Angelo Le'uila, again, he's been a very big staple, huge addition for the Utah Warriors. They look like just great. 5 conversion kicks, a penalty kick to add, 13.4 fantasy points. He will lose his center eligibility, or he will lose his fly half eligibility this week, so he will strictly be at the center position. So it's going to be interesting, the dynamics. Obviously, very reliant on his kicking for point production there. But I mean, if you have a combo of Joel Hodge and D'Angelo Le'uila, like I feel like that's like a perfect little kind of handcuff there when it comes to getting kicking out of at least one of them. And then a couple more double-digit performers. Frank Lahore, our second row team of the week honoree. 12.6 fantasy points for him. His highest of the year so far with the 42 meters and 23 tackles that he made to pair up with Jordan Trainer's 12.5 fantasy point performance with the 51 meters gain, try assist, and 2 forced turnovers. On the LA side of things, how good is it to see Reese Lightning back?
Oh, man, he looks so good too.
How good is it to see Reese Lightning back? Yeah, no, it's exactly that. Reese Lightning, 24.2 fantasy points in his first start of the year. I mean, there are so many things that this LA team can do with a back line or a back 3 of Andrew Coe, Rory Van Voot, and Reese McDonald. Like just filthy. And again, obviously Reese McDonald capitalized on that on this past weekend, and fantasy managers that have been holding on to him here, waiting for him to get healthy, he looks nothing but here moving forward this season. Going to be electric. Again, just to remind people, this was a guy that when he was on the New England Free Jacks last year was one of our top fantasy options in any position here last season. Other guys, Matthias Jensen, Maddie, you've been a guy that's talked a lot about him. 15.4 fantasy points for him. Andrew Coe, 15.1 with that little cheeky try there with Gonzalo Bertrand kind of just finding him on the blind side, which was interesting. And then Gonzalo Bertrand mentioning him, 13.2 fantasy points, continues to be
great game. He had a great game.
The scrum half one. Even with a minus 8.3 point performance in his books there when he got the double yellows, and then 13.1 for Ed Timpson as well. So again, when it comes to these matches, like fantasy, like result aside, from a fantasy standpoint, Utah and LA are two teams that I want players from. I want players from. They may not win the match, but they certainly can win you a fantasy matchup if that's the case. Anything else that you guys want to say with this last one here?
Nope.
All right, let's go. Let's move on to the final matchup on Sunday, the lone Sunday matchup, 2 p.m. Eastern time. Not really crazy amount to say on this one. Obviously, kudos to Anthem RC for kind of hanging tight after getting beat pretty bad last week against the NOLA Gold. A team that a lot of people thought that they had a chance beating. And this one, they take on the best team in the Eastern Conference and hold their own. They came in as minus 21.5 underdogs. That was their largest of the season, and they covered it by far. And obviously Chicago took care of business, but it does feel like maybe a little bit of optimism is sneaking back in with this Anthem Rugby Carolina team, who at times looks all right. But a 28-20 victory for Chicago here.
Yeah, no, I mean, actually, I think Anthem dominated this game, in my opinion. Like they built phases really well. They actually had a lot of creativity in their offense, which I'd like to see. And just a lot more variation. Like you saw that with some of their set piece plays, you saw that with some of just their open field play. Really like that. I thought they had a really dominating kind of at least 40 throughout this game, which is awesome. And I thought Chicago was just reckless with the ball. They lacked this when they gave the Anthem a lot of territory. So I would have loved to see Carolina just kind of come in and win. But I'm glad they kept it close. We'll have to see whether they're going to go back on this trend of covering every underdog spread as they can. But yeah, not much else to say there.
Dude, I gotta say, I hated the jersey choice in this game.
Oh yeah, I mean those are sweet alternates, but
the
like
Anthem blue.
Yeah,
like
true.
Pigment for pigment, the exact same blue.
Yep.
It was a sick jersey though, Maddie. It looked
sweet, just not the right time.
Not
the right
time
game.
at all. You're
not the
playing
right time.
That's their primary color.
Yeah.
No kidding. There were a bunch of doggos in the stand, so they are colorblind, so they couldn't even see, but the people are watching.
The people are watching. That's right. All right. Fantasy point performers in this one.
Oh, Mason Flesh was sweet this game. Absolutely crushed it. I mean, Mason another Flesh Canadian
is our back row team of the week player.
Ridiculous.
And there is something about this guy who just puts himself in the right position whenever the Hounds are within the 5 and just somehow times it right that he's the one that's dotting down the try. I believe his try last week was like that. His tries before in this season have been like that. He scores his 5th try of the season in this one. 2-try performance, 22 tackles, 33 meters gained, 20.4 fantasy points. Mason Flesh, back row team of the week honoree this week, and is a guy that's been, I think, a staple for the Hounds and a staple for fantasy managers who did end up picking up and have been riding him throughout all these good performances, because he definitely wasn't on the radar heading into this year when it comes to fantasy MLR output.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. And then the only other team of the week honoree in this one is the scrum half Ismail Safodian. 13.9 fantasy points for him, which is solid for the Anthem scrum half. Solid game here. First start of the year, 59 meters gained, a try and 5 tackles. We'll see whether or not he can become.
I think he's going to continue to start.
I feel that way too. And I also don't know if there's something maybe going on with Carl Keane, because we haven't seen him in the lineup. Obviously, Carlo Denishan backed up this one, and he was the starter last week. So just something to monitor going forward. Other Chicago performers here, Dylan Fawcett, the Butcher, doing Fawcett things. 12.9 fantasy points for him from the front row position. Michael Hand, back from injury. First appearance since round 3, gets 12.2 for him. Mitch Short at the scrum half position, 11.1. Clearly, Maddie, our kind of our 3D chess play, we'd start Juan D. Oliver at our 9 position because he was starting at 11. Didn't pay off when we could have started Mitch Short as well. We did get the win either way, but Mitch Short proving us why he should not be left on the bench when it comes to the scrum half. Nothing.
I said I was going to still leave him on the bench next week.
All right.
I was waiting for it.
from the Anthem side of things, the only other one on top of Safodian was Toby Fricker, who got 10.8
Yeah.
fantasy points for him.
Well, to be fair, when we get to the waiver wire in this next segment, I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Okay. Good to see Tim Swiel as well. His first start
Dropped him last week
since
too.
round one.
That's
And
all
puts
right.
up
You'll be all right.
10.4.
You'll be fine.
Yeah.
I got Hodgson.
Yeah, all good, all good, all good. All right. So yeah, an exciting matchup, our exciting weekend of matches. Again, a lot of them unexpected results, but either way, lends itself to some fun fantasy performances and some fun fantasy breakdowns. All right, let's talk about a different type of breakdown, and that is the waiver wire, and talk about some of these guys that we mentioned that you should be stashing on your roster.
Waiver wire breakdown.
All right, it's time for our TFR waiver wire breakdown heading in to round 10. A lot of options here. Again, it is LA on bye this week. And just a reminder that there also will be those midweek matches that are coming up next week. So if you want to do some looking beforehand to see if you can stash some guys to be prepared for that, this is a good week to do that. Let's start off here, Matt. I'm going to start off here in the front row position. A guy that's 0% owned. Go pick him up. Facundo Gaddis, 14.8 fantasy points for Gaddis on the season. Of course, he's the Old Glory DC hooker, or at least one of the options at hooker for Old Glory DC. But he's been a guy that's kind of been on a tear as of late. He has started 3 weeks in a row at that position, and he looks to continue to build off of that with his first double-digit fantasy point performance in round 9. He's getting the minutes, he's getting the starts. I think Gaddis is a good guy to kind of lean on here, especially with them taking on Miami this upcoming week, who could be capitalized on.
Yeah, I'll go with the flyer, Connell McIlnerney. Yeah, didn't think you'd hear that one, did you? 0% owned, 9.2 fantasy points on season, but I just had this feeling that he's going to get the start against Anthem on Saturday or on Friday, I guess. And they'll rest Quatrin for the game against RCLA. So that's kind of my thought. Give it a go.
I would probably say if you're the Quatrin owner, you're doing your best to try to make room to pick up Connell in the waiver to just make it an insurance.
Yeah, potentially. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Second row position. I will give out the PSA. Rhino Herbst is 43% owned. He's over 50% available in leagues. Seattle was on bye last week. So check to see if he's on your waiver wire. Rhino Herbst has been pretty solid at the second row position. Not going to make or break your lineup, but he's definitely not going to burn you and give you a goose egg at any point. I'm going to go with Hamish Bain as my second row pickup of this week. The Chicago Hounds second rower has 28.1 fantasy points on the season. He's a guy that has been performing pretty adequately here, but the reason why I want to pick him up is because he goes up against a Seattle Seawolves side that has been the worst against the second row position when it comes to fantasy output, and pair that with Hamish Bain kind of being on the upswing here. 7.8 in round 8, 9.1 in round 9. He played a full 74 minutes here this past weekend, and he put up his season high tackle numbers at 15. I think Hamish Bain, including the plus matchup, will have a solid week for you as a streamer here in round 10.
I like it. I don't have anything to add.
All right. Colin Gross is my back row player of the week.
Me too.
I don't think there's much that we need to say about this guy. We mentioned him last week on our waiver wire show. Clearly, no one listened to us, or at least, what is it? Let me do the numbers here.
Only 14% of people listen.
Yeah. Colin Gross was 0% owned last week. He's now only 14%. So only 14% of leagues listen to our advice. But he has now gone 3 straight weeks with double-digit performances. One of the highest-scoring back row players on the season so far.
I mean, look, here's the thing. He just has a nose for the try line, and there's no other way to put it. Like, he either has a nose for the try line or he's going to rack up 15-plus tackles. We haven't seen Janema, Fanana, Schultz for a while. I just think Colin Gross has won this starting job until further notice.
Are you putting money down on Gross at this point?
Yes.
How much would you put down?
$41. No, I don't know. Like $5, maybe $3. Like I don't think it's a lot. Like I think there's some you can find equivalent value elsewhere. But Colin Gross is a guy that feels pretty good. Is one of the top guys that's available for sure.
Colin Gross or Riekert Hadding?
Colin Gross. What? That's a dumb question.
Just why you gotta be like that? I think people want to know that.
Colin Gross or Emmanuel Albert?
Colin Gross.
Okay.
Mason
Colin
Flesh,
Gross or Semi Kunatani? Colin
Oh,
Gross.
that's a good one. Mason Flesh or Colin Gross?
Oh, Mason Flesh. I mean, I haven't even looked at Mason Flesh and what he's done. I'm assuming Mason Flesh.
Okay. All right.
Recency
Yeah.
put up 20, but
All
Well,
right.
hey, recency's the same there with Gross, but like Mason Flesh has shown this over 2 seasons.
Yeah. All right. So both of us call on the Colin Gross bandwagon here in the second straight week.
Both of us on the Thomas Inciarte bandwagon
as well in the scrum half position. This is a guy that has gained scrum half eligibility. You're probably going to see him at the center position at some point.
You also might see him on the bench.
You might see him on the bench.
Or off
it's going to be
roster.
an Inciarte roller coaster, exactly. But again, he's playing against a team of Old Glory DC that I think they can capitalize on if he gets the start. Again, at this scrum half position, there's not much that you can really kind of go for. So if there's a window of opportunity, pick a guy that can get you points. Inciarte can be that guy. Only 29% owned, has 47.1 fantasy points. It's going to be an emotional ride, but hey, if you have the space.
Hear something crazy?
What?
He plays better when he plays scrum half. Double-digit points every week he's started at scrum half. Single-digit points, under 5.2 fantasy points every week that he started at 13. Just shows it's a sign. Pick him up. He'll be worth it.
Any money on that?
I mean, I'm going to.
Okay. All right. I guess the other option would be Safodian, Ismail Safodian.
Yeah.
He could be a guy that maybe starts to interject himself in the lineup. First start of the year, 13.9 fantasy points, maybe a flyer on him. He's 0% owned. So if you just need a option, he might not be a bad look either. Fly half position, I'm going to go with Harrison Boyle. I get it that he does not start necessarily at fly half anymore. But again,
he will. Falatoy Penny's out.
Okay.
There's no way he's back this weekend. After
we know that Jason Potros has been dealing it. Is this the first time we're going to see Dan Holland's head?
We are.
Possibly.
We are. I promise you we're seeing him Friday.
So regardless of whether Harrison Boyle starts at fly half or starts at the fullback position, he is going to be a big play going against Anthem Rugby Carolina. 0% owned.
He will not
39.8 fantasy points on that.
He's playing against LA. Holland's head is starting on Friday. Promise
you. That's what you think.
I promise you.
Okay, so who are you? So if you had to pick one right now to put a waiver wire claim on, then you're picking Dan Holland's head.
I mean, yeah. Unless Jason Potros is somehow back, I can't see why they would play. Like, Boyle is their last 10 who's played for this team. They can't play both. He can't play both. Falatoy Penny's out. He was lying on the ground, probably with a concussion.
So is this a wait and see game, or what are you doing here, Matt?
I was gonna wait and see. Just because I don't know. I mean, my thought would be you put the waiver on Harrison Boyle. The minute you see the New England Free Jacks lineup come out, you better be the quickest on the trigger. Like, I'm talking about like double tap.
Yeah. That might be the play. That might be the play. Maybe have Dan Holland's head as your backup waiver wire. But I think Harrison Boyle will be out of the two will be the more added player. But there is a very, very good opportunity that Dan Holland's head is starting against the Anthem this weekend. Any other? Those your two?
No, that's it. That's it.
Right. Center position, Isaac Tutamaki is my pick here. 0% owned. I try to find an excuse to put this guy in my waiver wire lineup each and every week because I feel like his fantasy points doesn't reflect how impactful this guy can be. And I get it. It's been lackluster and it's paired with the poor play of NOLA since the beginning of the season. But this guy has literally played every single minute of this year.
Right. And you get 1 point for that.
Round 8, 11.6, scores a try. Round 9, 15.3, scores a try. He's had 20 tackles in the past 2 matches. He has 54 meters gained. I think if you're a center needy team, Tutamaki is not a bad guy to have stashed on your bench.
Really interesting way you framed that. You really boosted that up a little bit.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
You're saying 50 meters gain like as if it wasn't 23 and 21 meters gain.
I said 50 meters
20
up.
tackles as if it
It's
wasn't
all about
11 and
numbers, baby, and
9.
I'm good with numbers. Either way,
He's
0%
got
owned.
160 minutes played.
I can't do that math that quickly. But Maddie, who is your center position?
I got Thomas Kubisha. I already said how much I love him. Yeah, I just think he's like a staple of this team. If he's playing center, he's bound to have a good game and an impactful game fantasy wise.
We talked about Utah Warriors and LA guys that we want pieces of those teams. Matthias Jensen is still more than 50% available
I'm
out
by
there.
them.
So check if he's available. JP Duplessis is another guy that I have listed here. He's on the up and up, 10.4 fantasy points, 29% owned. He might be turning the corner here and showing signs of old school JP Duplessis that we've seen fantasy dominance before. Quickly, Matt, Duplessis or Titamaki?
Neither.
That's not an option.
Kubisha.
Kubisha. Okay.
No,
All right.
Duplessis, I think.
Duplessis. All right. Back three position. I will say Xavier McNeau is owned in just 57%. He should be
Cheater.
probably owned in all of them.
Should be under 50.
It should be what?
Under 50% owned. Who's your guy under 50% owned?
I know. Telling people to go check their waiver wire, Maddie. Drew Wild, check him too. 57% owned. Still available 43%. All right. Last one for me is a guy that is under 50% owned. Julian Roberts, 14% owned, 53.2 fantasy points on the season so far. It was Cooper Coates' position to lose to start, but it has been Julian Roberts' takeover since round 7, and he's looked good. He's had 50 meters gained in higher than that in every single match that he's started at the 15 position. Has 3 tries in 3 games at the fullback position. He's been electric, and he scored 18.5 fantasy points this past week. So I think Julian Roberts is a fine player to add if you're looking for some consistent play from the fullback position.
Yep, I agree. And I'll go with last one, Devon Rousseau, 100% owned. Might be on your waiver wires. Just check it out. He might be there.
You're ridiculous. So you
And I don't care about defensive set piece. Absolutely don't care. Don't even start him.
Do you take Utah seriously?
I mean, yeah, I take Utah seriously, but I would rather a player on my bench.
Even Utah, when Utah put up 9 fantasy points this past week.
Yeah, but yeah, I'd still have a guy on my bench.
All right.
I'm not going to put up 9 every week.
In case you wanted to know, Utah is only 43% owned, so they are available. The New England Free Jacks, who take on the Anthem, are also under 50% owned, so that might be a streaming option this week as well. All right, cool. Waiver wire segment done. Quickly here, before we kind of turn the page to round 10, couple quick questions, quick hitters for my boys here on the show, Vandy and Matt. Want to ask you some quick questions halfway through now that you've gotten a little bit more of a feel of what this season is. We made some predictions at the top of the year. Let's talk about quickly here some of those answers. Who misses playoffs?
And
nobody. Like what? One team misses playoffs this year?
Yes, but who are you picking?
Anthem.
Has that changed? Anthem from the East.
Seattle
from the West. You need one more East team.
I'm going to say NOLA.
All right. So NOLA. So you think Miami squeaks through? You same thing there, Maddie?
Yep.
And OG,
okay.
Yeah.
All right. Who takes the Shield?
Utah.
Oh, look at
Chicago.
this guy. Chicago. All right. Fantasy number 1 overall.
I don't know. Depends how much weight your stupid non-source statement has.
All right. Pass, he says. Needs more information. All right. Good to know. Just wanted to recap that. All right. Well, with that being said, let's talk about this week 10 that is to come.
Rucking Rundown.
All right, time for our Week 10 Rucking Rundown. Going to fly through these matches here. We got 5 on the docket. LA on bye. Vandy's killing it. 26-17. Let the haters hate.
Let the haters hate. That's right.
Even on the weekly Rangers picks that we do, Vandy's right up there, representing the Fantasy Ruckers show good. I believe he's in the top handful of guys. Pretty solid there. I am 22-21. Maddie is 20-23.
Oh yeah,
So maybe okay at the weekly challenge. Not so good at making picks, but we'll see
don't
whether or
matter.
not he can switch that. Again, LA on bye. We start off. We have Friday and Saturday matches this week. Starts off 7:30 p.m. Eastern time on Friday. Anthem Rugby Carolina taking on the New England Free Jacks at home. I mean, I think at this point it's just play your New England players.
Which ones?
All of them.
Oh, good luck finding out which one's
Oh
playing.
yeah, true. Yeah, that is one thing to look at is look at that lineup that's going to be coming up. It's
Yeah.
lucky that this is a Friday match, so we may get it earlier, hopefully. But we'll see. Obviously, I'm picking New England in this one, but yeah, it's gonna
Yeah,
be.
I'll go
That's
Anthem.
easy.
You're gonna go Anthem.
I'm going Anthem.
What?
All right. Spicy, Maddie. All right. Next one is just a handful of hours later, 10:30 p.m. Eastern time on Friday. The Seawolves host the Hounds.
Wait, you think New England's gonna be resting their guys, and that's why you went Anthem?
They have to.
They do have their
They
next
have to.
match
They
on-
have to play a mixed lineup. They can't play their starters. And if I had to choose one game to play my starters, I'm playing them against LA.
Hmm.
I don't think it's going to be a complete second team, but we saw how Anthem did against Houston, and Houston put out a second class team. We saw that happen, and Houston's arguably a better squad.
I'm betting on Carolina. All right.
All right. He's spreading his bets. All right. Chicago is the team I got in this one. Seawolves look terrible.
Yeah, I agree. Chicago as well.
Yeah.
It's
That's
not
easy.
much there. Are you? I mean, Devon Rousseau, you're starting in this one,
Yeah,
obviously.
you got to play your regulars, but yeah, I think Chicago's going to control the game quite well.
If you can pick up a Harrison Boyle or a Dan Hollinshead, would you rather play him than Rodney Iona?
Depends who's starting. I don't know. Like
Dan
Yeah,
Hollinshead is starting on Friday. Rodney Iona is starting on Friday. Who are you starting?
yeah, probably Holland's Head.
Okay. So basically the New England Free Jacks fly half over Iona. Interesting. All right. All across the board, Chicago there. All right. Then we start our matches on Saturday. Old Glory DC taking on the Miami Sharks at home. Old Glory wants to bounce back from what was a tough matchup against NOLA. Miami off of a big win against Houston. I'm still not necessarily confident in either of these teams, but DC is at home. I think I'm going to go DC.
Give me Miami.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll go DC.
Okay. All right.
I wanted to choose Miami though.
Anyone in particular from the past week, Maddie, that you're more confident? Like you're starting.
No, I don't think I'm any more confident than in anything. I think it's very similar to kind of against NOLA. Like Miami and NOLA are very similar kind of caliber teams.
Yeah. Okay. On to the next Saturday matchup, 8 p.m. Eastern time. The Houston Sabercats taking on the NOLA Gold at home. I mean, good for
I guess
NOLA.
sorry for the last game. I guess keep watching if Jason Robertson's still out. That's interesting.
Yes. That would be another thing as well. Houston, NOLA. I'm going Houston in this one. Should be straightforward.
Yeah, it should be Houston.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't see NOLA. I mean, Ogle or DC is one. Houston's a whole other beast, and they're angry after a loss.
Yeah, I agree. All right, and then we close out with what should be a very fun match: the Legion at home against the Utah Warriors.
Smack 'em. We're gonna
You know what?
smack 'em.
I'm changing my pick here. I'm going Utah. I
Yeah.
love seeing Vandy happy.
We're gonna smack
I'm hoping that it's cold enough or warm enough in Canada where we can see the Utah Warriors jersey next one. With how good that they've been on. But I'll switch my mind here. I'll go Utah in this one. I think this is going to be a fun matchup to watch, and I think it's going to have a lot of fantasy points in this one. So I'm happy to start both my guys. Or guys on
Hoynihan,
both these
Brad
teams.
Wilkin. I think for San Diego, we're gonna have a great game.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I'm gonna go San Diego though. I gotta go. I can't all three going Utah, so I'm gonna go San Diego. Hopefully they will.
Road Warriors, baby.
Road
Warriors.
That is true. Nice little nugget there. All right. Let's wrap up the show and talk a little bit about cash before we end this episode 150.
TFR Betting Challenge.
All right, it's time for our TFR Betting Challenge presented by Betstamp. Betstamp Betting made easy. Get in on the action on making some picks here in Major League Rugby. It's never too late, and you can do that at sportsbooks available in your area by checking the link down below. Betstamp and the Fantasy Ruckers have partnered here to offer a nice little tool that you can click on that will curate all of the sports books that are available in where you reside, and will also give you some free bets at those sports books with some first-time new user deals. So check that link out down below. Help support the show and help you win some money here as we break down some of our picks here in the TFR Betting Challenge. Vandy, rough week for you, buddy. But I think it was a rough week
Ruh-roh.
for everyone.
Not you,
$16 in the
Ryan.
hole with some of those picks that went through. You're now $63.82. Here made this 2025 season. I'm trailing behind by about half. I'm around $30. But I will say I was locked out of my accounts.
That's what they
I was
all
out of the country. I was in
Looks
Canada.
like a pretty good excuse.
Would not allow me to use my US funds,
put
obviously,
respect on
to
that name. You were in Canada, baby.
I was in Canada, and it was good to see some old friends, some familiar faces. But DraftKings not having any of it when it came to helping me participate in the TFR betting challenge. So no money made, no money lost here for the Supreme Commissioner here. So I still sit around $30 behind Vandy here. So it was nice to see. It was nice to see Vandy lose some money here, so I can close in the gap a little bit. Don't know what you guys are talking about. Get off my
Mike
back.
Myers.
Ridiculous. All right. Maddie, you've been doing a good job at guessing some lines.
Crushing it, but Vegas keeps
You were
messing with
okay.
me.
They
I
are
was
messing with
okay,
you.
but we'll do better this week. We'll do better
Okay.
this week. I'll run through them. I'll run
Okay.
through them
Let's see it.
quickly because we got to get out of here. Free Jacks versus Anthem. Anthem the dogs by 12.5. I'm taking Anthem to cover that for sure. Chicago versus Seattle. Chicago is going to be favored by 7.5. Scratch that, 10.5. Miami versus Old Glory. Old Glory, I think, is going to be favored by 2.5 here. Houston versus NOLA. Houston by 7.5. San Diego versus Utah. I think Utah comes in favored at 2.5.
Okay.
I like the Anthem covering. I think Miami's a really interesting one to look at to cover. And then I think this San Diego Utah line to me is probably one of the most, probably one of the more interesting ones. Whoever is the favorite, I would hit the underdog.
Yeah. I had money line. I think I would go money line underdog
Yeah.
with that
I mean,
one. Try
yeah.
to do that just to see where that goes. But again, this is all hypothetical sports book lines that Maddie's pulling out from. I pulled out Davey
Oh.
Coates news from Where the Sun Don't Shine. Maddie pulls out sports book betting lines here. So we'll see how close he is. Wasn't too bad this past week, but Vandy, the game that I've had, I was trying to create a game out of this, and what I've realized that we can just use this as our knowledge, Vandy. So we take Maddie's lines, we see where the real sports books come out, and then that's where Maddie's bias lays, and we can bet accordingly to that and see kind of where to go from that. Obviously, wasn't able to put that strategy to use last week, but we'll see how it works this week. But yeah, I will. It will be interesting to see. I think out of all of those, where Utah and San Diego's line kind of lines with that, and who is going to be the underdog in that one. I think I agree with you, Matt. I think Utah's going to be slight favorites here, with how San Diego's been playing, but we'll see. And I think anything over 10 points, I think I'm going to get. I think I'm going to say Anthem's going to cover that. But anything else, and again, they're coming off their highest of the week, plus 21.5 against Chicago. We'll see where that goes. So there it goes. Andy, you feeling any more confident with your betting bets?
You know what? I just had some bad luck, but we'll turn around. Don't worry. Don't you worry.
Don't you worry. Don't you worry. All right.
I'm
Well,
just,
hey,
I'm just making sure
again,
I don't get too far ahead. Then it's not
that's
even
right.
fun.
That's right. Well, hey, episode 150. Again, I think we'll close out the show by saying couldn't be more thankful for all of you that have been on this ride for 150 episodes as we try to make this thing a reality, fantasy rugby in the MLR. It's been a fun ride out of a whole lot of ups, whole lot of downs, but we're trucking through, and we've been having a lot of fun while doing it. I think I can say on behalf of Matt, say behalf of Vandy, we wouldn't be doing this without the people that do listen to this show on a weekly basis and participate with Fantasy MLR on a weekly basis. Again, there are some late nights, lots of number crunching and lots of other things that go into this. And I think knowing the support that we get from the people who do tune in and do listen to what we have to say, it kind of drives us and motivates us. So again, we appreciate it. Spread the word. Love to get more people trying out fantasy rugby in MLR. And we're super excited, but we still got a whole way to go here in this 2025 season, and we're just getting started, both in this season and both for the years to come. Matt, Vandy, anything you have to say to the people as we close it out?
Thank you,
sir.
Love you.
All right. Well, hey, for Matt Yee, for Devin, Vandy, Vanderpool, I am Ryan Yee on episode 150. Here's to 150 more, and we'll see you next week on another episode of the Fantasy Ruckers Show.
150.
You've been listening to the Fantasy Ruckers Show, bringing fantasy rugby to the masses, covering everything rugby from the MLR and beyond. We hope you enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review, and be sure to tell all your friends. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, connect with us on social media at the Fantasy Ruckers. Till next time, this is the Fantasy Ruckers Show, signing off.